So super stoked to introduce our latest speaker. Just if I could have your attention real quick. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Again, one of the things that we've learned is that there's so much value in peer-to-peer learning. So everyone here has amazing stories that we can share. So I hope this gets you guys excited and geared up for later on tonight when we break to hang out. So next up, I'm going to be welcoming up Kelsey Jones, who currently leads brand design at Remix, also one of our portfolio companies. She hails from Alabama, from the South, and started her career at Chronicle Books, and is also freelance with clients like Twitter and IDEO. So please join me in welcoming her to the stage and give her a big round of applause.
Thanks. Hi. Yeah, so as Enrique said, I'm a brand designer at Remix. Tonight, I'm going to share a story of how I helped shape the strategy around a go-to-market launch for a new product that Remix designed. But before I get into that, I want to share a little bit about what Remix is and how we built a new way to design streets. So Remix is a GovTech startup that works with over 300 cities around the world to help design and manage transportation. Essentially, our mission is to help local government build cities that are safe, accessible, and equitable for all people. Remix kind of started out of Code for America, and design has always been core to how we approach solving problems. And one of the things that I personally love about Remix is that our approach to onboarding includes training in what it's like to work in government, and also an on-site with a customer to learn from them firsthand. So these are a couple pictures from my first customer on-site. I visited planners with the city of Boulder. I want you to just take a minute and kind of see what you observe here in this video on Market Street that I took a little bit ago. You'll see we have lots of different modes: bikes, skateboards, scooters. There's an Uber approaching, freight delivery. In a minute, you'll see like more private cars and buses go by. And it's understandable that our streets are exploding with all types of modes. And how streets are designed and for what types of modes is the clearest physical reflection of who cities prioritize. So Remix launched an experiment to see if we could build a new way to design streets. So we wanted to test drive a new product on real cities, and we convened a pilot program to help co-create the product alongside cities so we could test drive it. And so we announced this program on our blog, and we heard from over 150 cities around the world. We ended up doing interviews with 50 of them, chose 6 customers, and got to work building streets. So design and engineering is something that Remix invests heavily in early on in our product development process. It helps remove a lot of ambiguity around what the product needs to be. So here you can see some practices like manually measuring the street and kind of getting the mindset of street designers, and our design team leading co-creation workshops with our customers. To give you a little sense of what Remix actually looks like, we'll wait for it to play. Basically, you can drag and drop different lanes on the street, and it updates in your section. And the thing that's great about this is you can ideate and sketch out new ideas of how to design streets for all modes, like bikes and transit, and not just cars. I'll give it just one more minute to see if we can get video here. All right, I'll move on. So we spent months co-creating this product, and then we needed to figure out how do we launch this. So a few challenges immediately came up. One was around communication. How do we explain this new product to a new audience for Remix that, this audience has been using tools like PowerPoint and Excel for decades to do street ideation and design? The other two are things that people here will probably relate with. Timeline, we only had a few weeks until we are launching, of course. And budget, I mean, we just really didn't have a good understanding of how much money we should invest in a go-to-market strategy. So first thing I did was I started having calls with our pilot customers. And as I was conducting these research interviews, it became really clear that they had really amazing case studies and stories, and that they should be the ones to sort of explain what our product is. So we had an idea to create a film and basically highlight a customer story that is also acts as a product explainer. Some risks came up. We wondered if this type of approach would be persuasive to government, where decision makers are historically a little slower to change. And then what happens if the pilot customer doesn't renew their contract? Does the video then become obsolete? But ultimately, we felt like this direction would have the most potential impact, so we decided to move forward. As I started, I'm Remix's sole brand designer, and this was my first time actually truly leading a video project from end to end. Doing the initial interviews with customers, figuring out what this narrative should be. And when I started reaching out to filmmakers around San Francisco, pretty wide range of quotes that came back. Everywhere from $3,000 to over $100,000 for a 2-minute explainer video. And as I did a little more research, kind of found that $15K was the minimum that we could invest and get the quality film that we needed. And Remix had never invested in film in any significant way in the past. And I knew that when I went to my team, I had to make the case in business terms to get the approval to go forward with this asset. So one way we looked at it was, if this film could help us just acquire one new city, it would already be worth the investment. I went as far to even say that would help us land the first $100,000 in sales. So they believed me, I got the green light, and went forward making it. So we decided to work with the city of Eugene, Oregon, to tell the story of how they helped redesign their downtown street grid. And design led this process by, again, having more calls with our customers, learning as much as possible I could about their case study. I worked with our filmmaker to really nail down a look and feel, storyboarded out the narrative. On the day of the shoot, I was there helping guide the interview. And after getting early cuts back of the video, I even leveraged our in-house transportation planners so I could get really quick feedback from the practitioner's perspective to know if this is something that would really resonate with our audience. So I'm going to share a quick look at how the final turned out. We're not going to, for the sake of time, we won't do the whole thing, but enjoy.
Well, I think that biking is really sort of the perfect machine. What I like about living in Eugene is when I travel, I see people that I know all of the time, and then they wave at me and I wave at them, and it really feels like a community. For the state of Eugene, I work on walking projects, crosswalks and sidewalks, and also biking projects, things like bike lanes or protected bike lanes. So sometimes when we're drawing up a project, all we have is the line work that shows where the streets are, where the sidewalks are, where the curbs are at, and we don't know what's happening at that intersection, so we don't really know the context. What Remix allows us to do is to pull in data, like crash data, so that when we're looking at a particular segment and we are focusing on the intersection, we know how many crashes happen there, we know how much right-of-way is there, so if we're looking at different solutions like roundabouts, all of that data is in one spot, and we're able to put all of that together at the same time. So a couple things that are unique about the Civic Stadium project is that there's sort of an old street grid network there with some one-way streets. And so there are 2 streets that feed directly into the Civic site where we know we're going to have to two-way some one-way streets. As we started to zoom out in the Remix software, we started to see that other streets that tied into the streets that we were focused on also needed some updating. And what Remix allows us to do is draw those up really quickly. In real time, we could actually sit down with some stakeholders and say, well, what if we did it this way? Or what if we moved the bike lane to the other side of the street? Or what if this intersection had a crosswalk on all corners? Or what if we put a stop sign there and so all traffic stopped and allowed you to get across the street?
Yeah, so when the filmmaker said he could do drone shots, I was like, sold, because I think it really added a lot to the film. So For the good stuff,
is really
we just creating more suspicion. We really want to know the impact. Woohoo! Yes. Great. Okay, so impact. First off, this video was viewed 10 times more than any other video on our YouTube channel for Remix. We calculated and have an estimated ROI of the video of $75,000, or more than 5 times of what we invested. I also found through an internal survey that I sent out a few months after launch that employees are also using this film for recruiting and fundraising and events, which is just an indirect way of helping our brand awareness. For the pilot program itself, 5 of our 6 early customers renewed their contracts. In the past couple of months, we've signed 5 new cities, and for government, that is a huge feat, with more than 20 in the pipeline. And then our customers themselves have seen savings of $100,000 just on consulting fees alone and 4 months of time using Remix. So a couple takeaways and things that I learned in this process. One is that design-led pilots are important, especially when building a B2B product for a really small user base like Remix does. What Remix Streets is today would not be possible without having that pilot program that allowed us to really have the transportation planners deeply invested and help driving product decisions. 2, get to know your customers and leverage their stories to build your brand. Storytelling can be a really emotional and convincing tool for the sales team. And as a brand designer, it's really important that I'm working alongside the sales and marketing and success teams, so I too am getting to get to know our customers firsthand, and therefore building a brand that they can really resonate with. And lastly, start small. Again, as Remix sole brand designer, I kind of have the weight of everything on my shoulders. And when I'm thinking strategically about how and where to invest in our brand, it can just start with one small project. Thank you.
Thanks for rolling with that. All right, cool. Thanks again, Kelsey, for sharing that story about Remix. Before we transition to our next speaker, please partner up with someone new and share an example of how your team has helped increase sales. Got it? A minute each. You can do it. All right, go for it. Way to roll with it. I mean, but you have the demo in the video.
I know.
So it's kind of, yeah, right. It worked out. We got money shot.